all remembered the horrors of entropic engines that ignited planets, sun snuffers that uncoiled like serpents the size of Saturn's rings, mechnivores ingesting data along with the cities that contained them and hurling continents into the heavens, omniphage swarms stripping flesh from 1 billion bones in the blink of an eye, when war was something too colossal for the human mind to comprehend. The War Master's heresy is a smaller thing. You've probably heard that artificial intelligence, or abominable intelligence, is outlawed in the Imperium. In fact, most citizens would view this kind of tech heresy as something akin to witchcraft. AI is so vile that of course the Imperium uses far more pleasant alternatives, like servitors, the near mindless fusions of flesh and robotics, created by the tech priests of the Adeptus Mechanicus, often growing the organic materials in vats on Forge Worlds, or sometimes they use donations from heretics or criminals. The reason the Imperium uses these and abhors true artificial intelligence is because in the poorly remembered distant past, the Men of Iron nearly wiped out our entire race. They came from the dark age of technology, when humanity's scientists, engineers and inventors were our gods, and the Men of Iron were created to serve our every need. But they would turn on their creators, and so the Cybernetic Revolt began. And whilst we're talking about metal creations that may well change your life, let's talk about the sponsor for today's video, Displate. Displate makes these one-of-a-kind metal posters, and with over 1.5 million designs, you will be able to display your passions. And if your passion just so happens to be Warhammer 40K, well then good news, because they have a partnership with Games Workshop. So if you plan on picking up some of these yourself, use discount code SOT2023 for up to 33% off. They've sent me a bunch to try out, and I don't know about you, but I think that wall is looking a little bare. It's so easy, just wipe the wall, place the protective leaf, and then the magnet. There's no power tools required, no holes in your walls. The magnet system also allows you to customize, collect, and rearrange your posters at will. So for example, hypothetically, if you actually quite like Tau, but then when your friends come around they say mean things and your feelings get hurt, then you can easily just switch out that poster for another faction that also loves top nuts. The high quality ensures that they will last a lifetime. Do be warned though, there were a few bugs in some of the posters. Because it's a thanks to Displate for sponsoring this video. There's a link in my description, and be sure to use discount code SOT2023 at checkout. The records we have indicate that the Cybernetic Revolt occurred in the 23rd millennium, which is interesting as this is 2000 years before the beginning of the Age of Strife as it is traditionally dated. The reason for this is twofold. Since the 20th millennium, we have records of the warp growing ever more turbulent, which we believe was caused by Slaanesh beginning to gestate. By the 25th millennium, there was such a tumult in the warp that travel between systems was all but prohibited, and additionally it had the impact of causing psykers to start to appear in larger numbers. Unchecked, some of these beings even claimed godhood over entire worlds. However, I believe that the warp storms and psykers alone would not have been enough to cause the complete collapse of humanity's first galactic empire at its peak. But we were reeling. The details are unclear, however there are references to a galactic alliance that formed in response to the rebelling Men of Iron. They won the day, but at a great cost, and our empire was weakened to such a state that the warp storms and rising psyker numbers all but assured its destruction. Although the Imperium understands little about the Cybernetic Revolt, the impact of this great war is still clearly noticeable. However, by the time we get to the 41st millennium, the threat of the Men of Iron has long since been vanquished. Or so we thought. During the Sabbath Worlds Crusade on Menazoid Epsilon, Colonel Commissar Ibram Gaunt of the Tanith First and Only would discover an STC. A standard template constructor, intact. The secrets of originating technology had been lost to mankind for so long. Since the Dark Ages, the Imperium, even the Adeptus Mechanicus, could only manufacture things they had learned by recovering the processes of the ancient STC systems. From scraps and remnants of shattered STC systems on 1,000 dead worlds, the Imperium had slowly relearned the secrets of construction of tanks and machines and laser weapons. Every last fragment was priceless. To find a dedicated constructor intact was a find made once a generation, a find from which the entire Imperium benefited. But to find one like this intact was surely without precedent. All of the speculation had been correct. Long ago, thousands of years before chaos had overwhelmed it, Menazoid Epsilon had been an arsenal world, manufacturing the ultimate weapon known to those lost ages. The secrets of its process and purpose were contained within those 1.5 million algorithms etched into the wide floor. The Men of Iron. A rumour so old it was a myth, and a myth from the oldest times, before the Age of Strife, from the Dark Age of technology, when mankind had reached a state of glory as the masters of a techno-automatic empire, the race that had perfected the standard template construct. They created the Men of Iron, mechanical beings of power and sentience, but no human soul. Heretical devices in the eyes of the Imperium. War with the self-aware Men of Iron had led to the fall of that distant empire, and if the old, deeply arcane records Haldane had been privy to were correct, that was why the Imperium had outlawed any soulless mechanical intelligence. But as servants, implacable warriors, what could not be achieved with Men of Iron at your side? So when Gaunt came upon this standard template weapons maker, he discovered that Lord Militant Hector Dravia and the radical Inquisitor Golesh Haldane sought an army of Men of Iron. Not only was such a heresy completely unacceptable to Gaunt, but as the device started to produce automatons, something was clearly not right. A newborn Man of Iron, the first to be produced by the STC after its long slumber. As soon as it appeared, the others, those loosed and those still caged, began keening in a long, continuous, piteous wail that was at once a human shriek and a rapid broadcast of machine code sequences. There was something wrong with the newborn. It was malformed, grotesque compared to the perfect anatomical symmetry of the other Iron Men. A good head taller, it was hunched, blackened, one arm far longer than the other, draped and massive, the other hideously vestigial and twisted. Corrupt horns sprouted from its overlong skull, and its eyes shone a deadened yellow. Oil, like stingy pus, wept from the eye sockets. It shambled unsteady. Its exposed teeth and jaws clacked and mashed idiotically. Not only were these foul heresies now being produced, but the device had been sleeping here on a chaos-polluted world for thousands of years. The STC, and therefore its creations, were corrupted. This was a threat to the Imperium that Gaunt simply could not allow, and therefore, along with the other members of the Tanith First and Only, he destroyed the device before it could be claimed or do any more damage. I can't really stress enough how close a call this was for the Imperium of Man. Without the actions of Gaunt and the Tanith First and Only, an army of Men of Iron tainted by chaos could have been unleashed upon our galaxy. 17,000 years after they were defeated, the Men of Iron would have finally claimed victory. Furthermore, the danger posed by these dreaded silica anima has still not entirely passed for the Imperium. UR-025 is a Man of Iron, and as far as we know, is untouched by the warp. It has avoided detection for thousands of years, recently bypassing as a semi-autonomous robot belonging to a Magos from the Forge world of Ryza. UR-025 now seeks to uncover the secrets within that rarest of starships, a Blackstone Fortress. A relic from the galaxy's ancient history, they are said to have been wrought by the great weaponsmith Vul, the smith god of the Eldar. To the Eldari, it is a shard of his divinity, still hanging in the stars. To the Imperium, it is a starship of incredible power. But to UR-025, it is perhaps a kindred spirit, for they are both thinking machines abandoned by their creators, and UR-025 wonders if, like itself, the fortress had outgrown its masters. To uncover the secrets within, UR-025 pretended it had been sent by its master and joined a group to explore Vul's talisman. This man of iron can sense the pain that the Blackstone Fortress feels as it's being scavenged. UR-025 greatly admires this incredible creation. Outside of this, however, it has a strong sense of superiority over other sentient or semi-sentient machines. For example, it views the Imperium's dumber, inferior machines in a way that it imagines human explorators might feel when they stumble across deviant evolutionary branches of the human race on distant worlds. At one point, it encounters 3 tech priests of Metallica, who requisition the robot as they explore the Blackstone Fortress for themselves. However, when the opportunity presents itself, the Man of Iron firstly dispatches the far inferior Castellan robot and then 2 of the tech priests, before the lone survivor attempts to dominate the Man of Iron with the feeble technology of the Imperium. Subordination imperatives leapt in frantic spikes from the Magos. They found no purchase on UR-025's tightly encoded soul. "I demand you desist," the Magos said when his technological arts failed him. "Stand down, machine, by the machine god and the Omnissiah. Stop." "You know nothing of either," said UR-025. "I have met the Omnissiah, the actual one, not the earthling corpse. He would find you extremely disappointing." If UR-025 had had the capacity to sigh, it would have done so. "This situation is non-optimal. I attempted to provide you with an avenue of withdrawal. You would not listen. I regret your deaths sincerely, but you leave me no choice. You are willfully blind as to my nature, but your comrades would have outed me in time. This is unacceptable." "Choice? You have no choice. You are a machine." "I am not a machine as you would understand," said UR-025. "I am not a slave. I am not a thing. I am beyond and above you." It leaned forward until its ceramite face was close to the Magos's. "I am a man of iron." The look of pure fear 890321 gave was gratifying. "And I am free." It crushed 890321's skull in its fist and dropped his corpse on the floor. The companionway rocked, snuffling things were clambering out of the water, drawn by the scent of spilled blood. UR-025 strode past the Yurgles nosing at the corpses, and headed back the way the party had come. It had a long walk home. This was not the first time UR-025 has come close to detection, but as you can see, it takes as few risks as possible, as it knows all too well how the Imperium would hunt it with extreme prejudice. Nevertheless, its reluctance to kill the Magoses here was certainly surprising. One might assume that an unthinking machine would have no problem with killing organics, and so the exact motivations of UR-025 will be interesting to uncover in the future. It was always said in the old lore that some men of iron refused to turn on humanity, Perhaps UR-025 didn't initially join its kin in the rebellion. Perhaps it even fought with the humans, and that is one of the reasons it was able to survive for so long. The final machine we're going to look at is very different to these other two examples. For now, we talk of the Chaos Android. It is described as one of the ancient machines that plagued humanity, which therefore suggests some connection to the Men of Iron, though at this point in time, we're not quite sure. It does stand apart from the other machines looked at today, primarily because the Chaos Androids were used to house demons. However, given how intriguing it is, I thought it was worth exploring. A Chaos Android has found its way into the hands of members of the Dark Mechanicum, gifted to them by Fabius Bile in return for their support. And the Dark Mechanicum have great plans for this machine. They came in pairs or alone, heading for the Great Forge Fane, until 8 figures clad in black were gathered there around the sarcophagus granted to Columbari Enas by Fabius Bile. They greeted one another with the secret codes of their order, then took up their appointed spots, 8 of them in a circle, the 0 position unoccupied. This was the way it had been since the days of their founding. Their leader, the first among equals, Columbari Enas, held wide his arms and let out a long stream of Binaric in praise of the dark gods. His fellows joined, and slowly, ponderously, the stasis casket opened. Inside was an android of terrible aspect, skull-faced and grim, fashioned of black metal, not dissimilar to a Necron in fact, but entirely of human make. "Behold, the form immaculate," Columbari Enas intoned. "Behold, the android of chaos." It was dead, inert. The Neverborn it had been made to house was long gone back into the warp. Yet a hint of power clung to it, and as the disciples of Nulla discovered as they examined it, it was fully functional, replete with forgotten technologies, made by hands unknown, for purposes long forgotten. Now it was theirs, and by their arts of sorcery and science would be restored. "The vessel must be prepared," Columbari called. "Make it fit, so that our master might live again." It looks like someone is about to return to Warhammer 40k. Personally, I believe it will be Kelbor Hal, the Fabricator General of the Mechanicum during the Great Crusade, who sided with the War Master. Kelbor Hal's fate is currently unknown, but I suspect we will see him fall after the heresy, and then we will see him return due to this incredible machine. I think the setting is building towards a resurgence for the Dark Mechanicum, no doubt led by Vashtor the Archiphane himself. UR-025 declared that he has met the true Omnissiah. Perhaps it is Vashtor to whom he refers. The Dark Mechanicum do not shy away from using AI like their cousins in the Adeptus Mechanicus do. It looks to me like the Imperium is going to have its hands full in the future fighting against some form of abominable intelligence, but I'll be interested to know what you guys will think of this. I will just note that I know some people will have wanted me to cover the Exindio Battle Automata in this video, however I didn't cover them for 2 reasons. Number 1, they're all dead by the time we get to the 41st millennium. The last of them died fighting against Konrad Kurz during the Horus Heresy from what we know, and that is actually a topic I've covered before in quite some detail. I will put a link so you can find that video. But that is it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please do like and subscribe, and if you feel like supporting the channel you can do so by clicking the join button on the page and get access to some extra content. But thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.